Good evening and welcome to this edition, a very special edition this evening of the Presidential Lecture Series. And I'm glad that we have no basketball games tonight and we can focus on other important things in life, such as our legal system in the great state of Indiana here. And tonight we are truly honored and delighted to host a very special guest, a Boilermaker, a neighbor, and for the past 11 years and counting, Chief Justice Loretta Rush of Indiana Supreme Court. Thank you so much for coming. Chief Justice, Your Honor, welcome. Welcome back home to Purdue.
Welcome, President.
Well, what do you think about this weather, first of all? You know, this feels more like spring now, and I know you actually spent some wonderful time here as a student, and I know you've got a Boilermaker family, but maybe start out by telling us a bit more about your childhood, because when you were here, invited by my predecessor, Mitch Daniels, to give a commencement speech about a decade ago, you talked about crossing tracks and your growing up. Moving continuously all the way from Pennsylvania and then stopped here in our home state, Indiana. How was that like?
Thank you. Well, my sister's here, so she was on this journey with me. My dad worked for the railroad, so I moved 16 times before I graduated from high school, from Hoboken to the south side of Chicago. So it was the trains. And then ended up graduating from Richmond High School. You can't turn down Purdue when you've got Purdue. I mean, Indiana's lucky to have so many fine institutions. And ironically, the trains, and this was part of my commencement speech, the trains brought me to Purdue, and then I married Jim Rush, and there's the Rush Crossing where you jump the tracks. His parents were there, and you know, Purdue's got such a rich train tradition. They actually had the story that when they brought a locomotive in, they didn't have a track to bring it in, so the students took like 2 weeks off school and they, you know, foot by foot dragged that train. I always think that represents the grit of a Purdue student.
We don't do that anymore these days. For most classes of our undergrad students. Yeah.
So lived in a lot of places and have settled. I mean, I consider Indiana my home. I've lived in Lafayette now since 1983. My former law partner, Bob Reiling's here. It's been a great place to live and raise our kids. Yeah, I don't like the commute to Indianapolis, though. I'm not a fan of 65.
Aha, yes. Well, how was it like when you were a student here? What did you study and where did you live?
I lived in a dorm, McCutcheon, for the first year, and then I was in a sorority I did Purdue in 3.5 years. I took a semester and was in Europe, and Purdue was great. I mean, I think I switched my major 4 or 5 times. I thought I was going to be an engineer until I actually saw the engineering curriculum and realized that you couldn't take, I thought I could take the arts and philosophy and that. So I moved it around a lot and ended up with a history, but then also got certified to teach economics, sociology, political science, and government, and then took a lot of classes at Krannert.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot of study.
It is, and then Purdue gave me a lot of opportunities too. Part of being at Purdue, I was involved in a lot of different things that Purdue had to offer. Purdue actually sent me to a student conference on U.S. affairs in 1978. It was something President Carter put together, and it was at West Point. So West Point had just opened to women. So I was able to study at West Point. I took some military classes at West Point, and then I got invited to go with a delegation from West Point to China in 1979. So that was a fascinating experience. So there's just lots of different opportunities along the way. Purdue sent me out to D.C., to Washington. I got to meet Warren Burger. So it was very beneficial for me at Purdue, and then all the opportunities and the doors open by just signing up for different activities.
And then after practicing law, you started serving in our state legal system. And if I'm not mistaken, around 2011, 2012, then Governor Daniels appointed you to be on the bench for our Indiana Supreme Court. Then you became the Chief Justice in 2014, and 11 years and accounting later. You continue to serve in that role. I heard that your predecessor is also a Boilermaker.
Yes, and he's here, Chief Justice Dixon. Is he?
Oh. Hello and welcome back as well. Boiler up.
So the last two Chief Justices in Indiana
Yes.
are Boilers. And in fact, Brent just retired, and he gave me his Purdue chair. So I have it in my office down at the State House.
Well, shall we continue the tradition? Can we write that into law? There must be a Purdue
Yes.
graduate to be the Chief Justice.
I think it's time.
Yes. And you're going to interpret it possibly as constitutional to our state constitution, possibly, I don't know. But, well, maybe you could tell us a bit more about this state court system. We live in, yes, a democracy, but also a republic. So there's division of power and check and balance across three branches of government, but also there's that check and balance at state level. And then there's the check and balance between the federal and the state. So how's the state court system different from the federal one?
Well, let's just start off with the numbers. And it's interesting, we've not talked about what he's going to ask me, just so you know, these aren't staged.
Yep, and we do not cancel censor speech, so I'm going to ask you some tough questions too.
Well, I'm a little biased towards the state court system. 98.5% of the cases in the country are in the state courts. We have Indiana today, there's 1.5 million cases pending in our courts. So when you look at the state judiciary as an institution, and there's two sides to every case, you've got a couple million Hoosiers that are depending on the courts. So what institution is used more than the state courts? Maybe the BMV. I don't want to be compared to the BMV. But you know how important it is to the lives of Hoosiers. When you look at the types of cases that are coming to court, sometimes I call us the government emergency room of some of society's most pressing issues. Domestic violence, child welfare, mental health, substance abuse, debt collection, complex commercial litigation cases. And to keep the wheels of the state moving, you have to have a state court system that is run in a way that people have trust in it, that they understand the importance of a co-equal branch of government, protecting the rule of law, and a place for people to go get their disputes settled. And I've had the opportunity I represented all the Chief Justices at the Conference of Chief Justice, so I've traveled the world and I've looked at judiciaries in other countries. And it's interesting. When you see, like, people will talk about, what their legal system's like. And I remember talking to the CEO from DuPont that said we outsourced a lot of our business because we thought we would get cheaper labor in other countries. And that was fine until we couldn't get our contracts enforced. And so what does the rule of law mean in those countries? So it's very important. But the state court system deals with, 250,000 criminal cases were filed last year. We have about 22,000 children that are in the child welfare system. We're seeing a surge on involuntary mental health commitments. We had about 11,000 filed. We had 4,500 adoptions filed in Indiana. So just a lot of cases that touch on we're seeing an increase in elder abuse cases. As you look at the elder population, I think we had about 19,000 reports of elder abuse in cases that came to court. Children in the system. We have about 111,000 children in Indiana that have had or have one incarcerated parent. About a third of our children are in single-family households. We have 50-some thousand being raised by their grandparents. And those are all the types of cases that come into the state courts. And it keeps us pretty busy. I did have dinner with Chief Justice John Roberts, and we talked about the difference in our systems, but we talked about the importance of institutional integrity and that it's how important it is for people to trust the judiciary and how, as a chief, you do your best to hold that together and keep that integrity going, because that public trust and confidence in the judiciary, it's our currency.
Absolutely. This notion of rule of law and the public trust in the legal system, so much is done at the state and local level, that so many other wonderful things in our country, and 98.5%, I did not know that number. Now I wonder, what do the federal court system folks do every day? And they only take care of 1.5%. But
they make the news a lot.
That is true, yes. But perhaps not fully appreciated also another major role for state courts as you mentioned, one of your papers. I've been trying to read your legal analysis papers here.
You've read my law review articles?
It's a lot of footnotes, I noticed. And
We love footnotes.
I pretend I'm reading it, but the role that you play in economic development and prosperity, maybe tell us a bit more about that.
When you look at the courts, and when I talk to, and we do our training of our judges and talk to lawyers, I look at the legal system as sort of an engine of economic development. And I read an article, maybe it took me 10 plus years ago, and it was from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It said over 70% of businesses look at the litigation environment of a state before they decide they're going to do business there. Well, that's telling, isn't it? So if you don't have a court system that is responsive to the business needs of the community, that's going to be a problem with regard to growth and economic development, which flow through all the cases that we have. So one of the first things I did when I was chief is I invited general counsel from around the state to come, and they all met in the Supreme Court room. And I said, I want to have a honest conversation. What's not working? What's working? What do you think? It costs too much and it takes too long. And for businesses, if they're going to decide to grow, invest capital, to locate, they want to know that they're going to have a system that they're not going to be tied up in courts for years. So we developed, at that point, we decided to do business courts. It's commercial courts, but it's for business-to-business disputes. And we've had about 2,600 of them in Indiana. Tippecanoe County is going to be getting one. Dan Moore is going to be doing it. And instead of taking years, it's weeks or months if you have a contract dispute or a non-compete clause, or you need a temporary restraining order. When can you get those done? So when you're in law school, and I know there are a lot of lawyers, I see you out there, and thank you for coming, they talk about Delaware, right? Delaware is it. It's sort of the gold standard of business litigation, and my friend is a chief in Delaware, and I go, we're coming after you because I really want to make sure that Indiana has a litigation environment that is conducive to doing business. It doesn't mean it's business versus little guy. These are these are commercial disputes that can tangle up a company, and so getting them resolved quickly, efficiently, in a predictable manner is important. And we actually have, we've now become completely paperless. You can go on, raise your hand if you've been on my case. We have a system that if you get on my case, find out what's going on in your neighborhood. I checked on all my kids and found out which one of them had the most speeding tickets on it. But you want to have that transparent system, but you can now search a database of trial court decisions on commercial court cases. We have commercial court treatise so that you know and you can advise your clients or make business decisions based on what's likely to happen in litigation. But I look at economic development not just from the business to business. I look at it as, last year, court-ordered child support in Indiana was $770 million. You've got to get the child support processed in the hands. You need to make sure guardianships are entered so that if people need to be raised and cared for by somebody else, looking at expungements, you need to make sure if you're eligible to get your criminal record expunged so you have more opportunities in housing and a job. So the quicker you can get your case done, you can get back to work, get back to your family, and back to support. So that's where I think courts sort of play into the fabric of the state.
Absolutely. I want to come back to one of your articles here, but you mentioned your children. Do you ask them to address you as your honor?
No, not at all.
Doesn't work?
They all, one day each of us decided to get a food name, and I think I was Nacho Supreme. That was the closest to any. And my grandkids call me Lolo, so those are the more prime.
Yes, well.
I always did tell my kids, if you got in trouble, you'd get a little attention, and they go, oh, Mom, you think you're all that, so.
Well, tell them, order.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work like that. Constellation of Constitutions, and encourage all of you to read this article as well. Maybe you can finish reading the footnotes that I did not, but I did read this much, that each state has its constitution. The Indiana Constitution was from 1816, and it is similar but not the same as the United States Constitution. And for example, you quoted Article 1, Section 12 of the Open Court system here in our state constitution. So maybe you could educate us. How does the state constitution differ from the United States Constitution?
We have different rights, more rights. The federal constitution sort of is the floor, but the state constitution has more rights. So if somebody files a claim or they have a defense and they only cite the federal constitution, like for search and seizure or a Fifth Amendment right against confrontation, you have more, but it's more than that. Like Article 1, Section 18 of the Indiana Constitution says that the criminal justice system shall be built on principles of reformation, not just vindictive justice. So that's really our charge, to say you can't just keep the revolving door of locking people up. The criminal justice system is a primary referral source to get people to treatment. We don't go to law school thinking that that's going to be our job, correct? But we have people that have huge mental health issues, substance use disorder, and finding a better path with regard to dispositions for them is really important. I know Pat Harrington is here. He's a friend of mine and been a prosecutor, and I know they participate in the Veterans Court in Indiana. And if you haven't been to a problem-solving court graduation, I went to one at the Veterans Home. It was amazing. Somebody tied up with drugs, having served for our country, are they going to spend their life in jail, or are they going to go through a process of heavy court supervision, and then they graduate? And in Tippecanoe County, after you're wrapped in services for this amount of time, at your graduation, the women, they wrap you in a quilt that they've made, a patriotic quilt. So it's really something to see the different programs that are going on through Indiana that are very redemptive, which really want to get people on the right track that have maybe suffered from substance use disorder, mental health. I mean, 70% of people in jails right now have a mental health substance abuse or a co-occurring disorder.
Mm-hmm. Well, how does Indiana's constitution and its practice compare to the other states? You mentioned that you served as the president of the Conference of State Courts, and how does our state compare to the others?
I think our state's doing really well right now. I think from technology, I think our technology and going paperless, and if you're an attorney, there's a portal where your cases are up. I think we're leading in a lot of innovations. We're looking at AI and how we harness AI to bring access to justice to different things. And I know are you going to ask me about AI? Or you
well, now I will ask you about AI.
I figure you're going to ask me about AI. We have a pilot program in Marion County on mental health commitments, where usually by the time your commitment is over, you've run out of, you can't get an appeal done. And we thought, everyone has a right to appeal, constitutional right to appeal under the Indiana Constitution, a statutory right to appeal. So we're using AI to do the transcripts. Instead of weeks or months, we're getting those transcripts in minutes. And I think we're going to be able to take that technology into other areas. I look at the needs for interpreters. I really want to lead in our state with regard to, people should know what's going on in a courtroom. And we have a number of non-English speaking people that come to court, and it's hard to find, different dialects, Haitian Creole, Burmese, some of the ones that we are struggling to find interpreters. So we're looking at AI in that. And then I always worry about the number of unrepresented litigants. How do we harness AI and sort of court navigators to help people navigate the legal system?
Well, AI has the potential to enhance efficiency and efficacy, but what about the challenges presented by AI? People show you some evidence, turns out to be manufactured pictures, and people may also litigate against each other, or companies against each other, claiming different ownership of IP if part of that is generated by AI, but they are taking the inspiration from other raw data sets. So there are many of these AI-related cases, and what do you think about those?
Well, they're here. I think that, one, I just spent the day meeting with Purdue students, and I had a wonderful time. There's a lot of people majoring in AI right now, or we're going to major on that. So I'm hoping those Purdue graduates will help us figure this out in the future. But what do you do with a, junk exhibit? If somebody, your liberty's on the line and somebody has manufactured something that acts like it's your voice and a manufactured exhibit, so we're going to have to use AI to figure out what's AI. But right now, for attorneys, what we're seeing, and I'm not seeing it very much in Indiana, but my colleagues across the country are seeing, is that instead of researching the brief or checking the citations, you're just putting it into AI, and there's some junk that's coming out, and they're being disciplined. So you've got to be careful with this, because we're going to look at those sites, and we're going to look at those cases, and if it's AI, then you're going to have problems. But we are training, we have an innovation committee in the Indiana Supreme Court, where we have a multidisciplinary group working on best practices on AI, but as soon as we come out with best practices, the next month there are new best practices. So this is an ongoing endeavor. One, we've got to work out the ethics of AI and make sure that there's rules, but it's hard to determine the line, because we all use AI, right? Autocorrect, if you use Westlaw Nexus, I mean, AI is a big part of what we do in research. So I think that it's unwritten now. All the judiciaries are sort of struggling with it. We've got some template rules. We're working internally with regard to our internal staff. We have 250 employees that work for the court, but there'll be a lot coming, more coming. But if somebody says in court and says, that isn't me, that's not my voice. I mean, you could have my voice, because they can pull it off the internet, and you'd think I was giving that entire speech, but it's all AI generated. So again, the judiciary is concerned with people's liberties on the line, so we've got to stay ahead of this to make sure that people aren't wrongfully incarcerated because of exhibits or dialogue that is not correct.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of those autocorrect, I'm going to claim innocence. If anybody doesn't like my text, I say, that wasn't my text, it's AI autocorrect. It changed completely the meaning of what I wanted to say. And well, can an AI machine sue human beings? Do they have ground?
No, I don't think
No?
AI right now can sue
Darn it,
human
I
beings.
was
But we do.
hoping
But
to work
it's
with them.
interesting because, like, in different countries right now, in Saudi Arabia, if you want to seek alimony, you will get AI. You won't get a judge. You'll get AI. The government gave the judiciary $1 billion to generate it. They tested over time. I thought it was interesting. They picked alimony of everything. But in China, they have certain things that are just given to AI to resolve.
Uh-huh. So AI as arbiters. But can AI sue the company, for example?
Right now, I've not
No?
seen of any case where AI is
Apple
sued the
Intelligence
company.
suing Apple? No, not yet. Okay. I don't know if they have legal.
Because we're going to make you show up
ground.
in court, and I don't know what's going to show up.
They do have to show up?
They gotta show up.
All right, physically show up. Okay. How does the caseload work here in the state court in Indiana, right? You've got municipal courts, you've got the county by county superior courts, and then there's the state Supreme Court. Does it work similarly as in the federal court system?
It does. There's 3 levels of review in the federal system and the state system. When I say 1.1 million cases, those are filed in the trial courts or the city courts. And then you have probably about 3,000 to 4,000 of those cases get appealed up to our Court of Appeals, which is our intermediate court. And then the Supreme Court, we get about 800 cases. So it funnels up. And when you look at accountability and you look at the judicial branch, if you're unhappy with the judge's decision, and you can read in the news, people are unhappy with judges' decisions, you have a right to appeal. And then if you don't like the Court of Appeals, you have a right to appeal up to the Supreme Court. The cases that come directly to the Indiana Supreme Court from the trial court, if a law is declared unconstitutional, it'll come right to us. We have capital cases, which are death penalty, that comes directly to us. We have, if somebody's sentenced to life without parole, it comes to us, and there's some original actions. There was a case where the the legislature and the governor were crosshairs, and there was a case that came up to the court, and we had to decide with regard to power of the legislative branch versus power of the executive branch in a decision 2 years ago. We have other cases like that.
Interesting. What was the most interesting case
It's a
you've
case
ever seen?
that I've ever seen. It's, it's a case that I'm working on right now, because every day I look at 30 to 40 cases a week. And there's something on the line on every one of those cases. And for that person that's tied up in that court case, that's the most important case to them. And it might be a small case. You know, there's a really important case, Gideon versus Wainwright, and it's a U.S. constitutional case where somebody didn't have a right to an attorney. And he wrote on regular plain, poor handwriting. I've seen it. He wrote on some legal paper saying, I didn't have an attorney and I think my rights were stepped on. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, you have a right to an attorney. If your liberty is at stake, you have a right to an attorney. So I get pro se cases all the time where people that write prison letters to us, or this is an appeal. And there's one case that I read, and I'm reading and I go, there's something here. So I start digging into it. Well, he won his case. So in Indiana, all 5 justices read every transfer petition. The U.S. Supreme Court, they kind of weed that. They get so many, they weed out. So you have 5 chances to get one of ours attention to say, we're going to discuss at a conference. We meet weekly to talk about those 20 to 40 cases. We also do attorney and judicial discipline, and then we have original actions. But as long as one justice wants to see a case or thinks an error might have been made, and it's a case that's going to have several other parameters, we will take the case, we will set it for oral argument, we will research it up to that point, and then we come back to the conference room, which is tradition. The newest justice votes first. We go around the table till we decide what the majority opinion is, and then I assign it for writing. Then it's written, and then you see if you can get 3 votes. There's 5 of us on the court, so what the law is on those cases is what 3 of us can decide it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So working to get consensus is.
Now, as Chief Justice, do you get to choose who's going to write the opinion? Do you get to dictate terms, and you just said
no,
others can also accept the case.
My vote is the same one. I have 1 vote on the cases. We will, I assign the case, but it's not like the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, I assign it to somebody in the majority, and then you just look at, if people will say, I'd like to write on this, or I'd like to write on this, or it's one. So there's a lot of factors that go in how you assign it. And then it gets circulated. If it gets a dissent, sometimes there's a majority, and then you write a dissent, and then somebody from the majority flips, and then they write the opinion at that point. But there's a lot that goes into each one, because when we write an opinion on the Indiana Supreme Court as a court of last resort, we're not just writing for that case. We're writing because this is the law in any case that's like it in the future. So you've got to be really careful. One, on what cases you say, every word matters.
Mm-hmm. Yes, every word matters. Now, you were appointed by Governor Daniels, and then you worked as Chief Justice with now 3 governors, and you have a team of staff working with you. So how would you describe the interactions you've had, or your team may have had, with the 3 different governors and their teams?
Well, they're all different, now, because I thought I was like the new, but I'm no longer the new person down at the State House. I'm sort of the old person down at the State House. But you meet with them, I give them a lot. I have a lot of respect for all of them and their work ethic. Governor Daniels was only there for maybe 2 months before he came up here, and we talked about that when I interviewed him, and I met him for the first time when I was interviewing him. And then Governor Pence was, I remember, because he swore me in as chief, and he goes, I haven't been this nervous since I was in law school, that. He's a very kind man, and very much cared about the rule of law and the importance of an independent judiciary. The same, Governor Holcomb was a non-lawyer, so Daniels was a lawyer, and so was Pence. But he knew a lot about the law, and he had a very good team, and we had a lot of good conversations and spent some time. And then Governor Braun, I met with him the day before he was sworn in. I met with him the day after he was sworn in. He's down there a lot. He's spending a lot of time working, but it's a different dynamic with all of them. Mm-hmm. And just as you're all learning a little bit about the state court system, they have to learn about the state court system too, and what the different roles are, and what the different lanes that we have. So it's always an interesting process, because then I bumped into President Chang. We both had our budget hearings. Isn't that fun? Don't we love
yes.
those?
Yes,
So it's
we
always
both
fun
need
when
money,
you
yes.
represent one branch of government and you have to go before the other branch of government to
yes.
get funded. So
Yes.
I was wishing you luck. I heard you did well.
Well, they didn't give me any tough questions, and they just say, "All right, get out of here." And I just, speaking of our state, I've heard a statistics that our qualifying score to be able to pass the bar exam is among the lower ones out of 50 states.
It is.
Is that a good thing? Is that a cause of concern? What do you think?
Well, I mean, that's part of our constitutional responsibilities, is the admission of attorneys and deciding. And I see Jerry Withard here, who used to be on the Board of Law Examiners. We still have an attorney shortage. We still have bar passage rates that are 70 or below. So it's really balanced out, the bar passage rate. It's not the lowest. I'm looking at the quality of attorneys, because we still do attorney discipline. And I'm pretty proud of the quality of the attorneys that I see in Indiana, so I'm fine with the bar passage rate. We have a new, there's bar examiners just coming out with a new next gen that we will be looking at. We did adopt the uniform bar. It's called UBE, so lawyers in Indiana can be portable and move to another state without having to take it. We thought that was important. That was adopted a couple years ago. We are looking at Purdue Global. And how many of you know Purdue has a law school? I know. I mean,
Well, now you all know.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for doing the commercial. I was about to do it.
Well, I'll let you. But it's a fully online law school, and that's a new frontier. So we had a lot of uproar about it. But what we decided, we studied it for a long period of time. We were very impressed with the quality of the programming. We are allowing them. They've got to go through the Board of Law Examiners, go through some hoops, but first time Purdue Global students just took the bar in February. We'll find out. I'm hoping they passed.
All right, please do. I know they are really good students. Now, by the way, how many of you are lawyers or would like to become a lawyer?
You can raise your hand. You can be proud of being a lawyer. Come on, you can put it up there.
I mean, this is the evening of love for lawyers. Well, I don't know why I raised my hands, but I'm not a lawyer. I was enticing you to raise hands, It's too late for me to learn anything new now. But, well, if you are thinking about a career in so many different aspects of the legal profession here, indeed, I'm proud to present Purdue family's first ever law school, PGRS, Purdue Global Law School, and this is part of the transformation into a non-profit educational institution, Purdue Global, that Mitch started back in 2017. And this law school, completely online, which means it's never too late for you. If you're interested to become one, I see the chairman of the board, Gary Lehman, Michelle there. Gary, if you want to, never too late. It used to be that a lot of states, including our home state of Indiana, would not allow those graduates of this outstanding online law school to have a chance to sit for the bar exam and see are they qualified or not. And we'll see on each individual cases. So I want to thank you, Chief Justice Rush, for you and many others' input to give the students a chance, because we do know that in our state, as in many states, there are what they call legal deserts, especially in rural areas where there are not enough lawyers to serve the community's needs. And we would like to provide one more source of choices for students and one more potential source of legal experts to our communities. So I'm glad to hear that those who apply, you have to apply for a waiver by the current system. And if the waiver is granted by the board that the Indiana Supreme Court oversees, then you have a chance to prove yourself. And then now it's up to you, whether you pass the bar exam or not. We'll find out the first cohort. But do you see the future of not just this one, but any other online law schools. You know, this Purdue Global Law School has some specialties, for example, in IP law. In actually AI-related laws is one of their pedagogical specialties. But we could imagine many other potential online law schools of high quality and a certain specialization being useful to the legal profession. Do you see a future role for them?
Well, the ABA, which accreditates law schools, they've allowed fully online for St. Mary's, which is Texas, a Texas law school that also has a brick and mortar. And I think there's like 4 or 5 other online programs. IU McKinney has a hybrid program. We lost Valpo Law School up in the region, and that was a real hit to the legal profession. A lot of attorneys were public servants, service attorneys that came out of there. And a lot of people make the jokes, you know, do we need more lawyers? But you don't want to you're staying in court in a rural community, and you're charged with a crime, and you have a right to an attorney, and we don't have an attorney to represent you. Mm-hmm. And I know, Pat, I don't know if you're having problems in Tippecanoe County, but I know a lot of prosecutors, they can't find deputy prosecutors in their community. I mean, I travel the state and I go to all the communities, and some of the attorneys, the graying of the profession is like, I have too much work. And so you can do a heat map of Indiana by seeing the sort of aging of our profession and find areas that we don't have enough attorneys. And then you have judgeships. You have, like, one person applies to be a judge in a community if we can get that person. So Indiana is in the bottom 10 in the nation with regard to legal deserts. I think a lot of students maybe graduate from law school and say they want to be in an urban area. I say, if you really want to you want to, link up with somebody with a established practice in a smaller community, because you are just vital to the, you're writing the wills, you're representing, you're incorporating, you're doing guardianships. I think it's a wonderful profession. So there's a lot more to come. So we have a pretty huge task force working on this issue. We're looking at licensed paralegals, we're looking at limited licenses. So what can we do to encourage the profession? And I'd love to see another law school up in the region, because about 7% of Notre Dame law students stay in Indiana, about half of Bloomington law students stay in Indiana, and about 87% of the ones that graduate in Indianapolis stay in Indiana. We just don't have enough.
Well, I, for one, believe strongly that the legal profession, the lawyers, are noble cause. Just like, say, doctors and nurses. It is truly amazing if I step back and in the middle of the night think about the fact that we have in the United States this legal system with independent judiciary, provide check and balance of 3 branches of government. We have a spirit of constitution, equality before law, innocent until proven guilty, and we have the whole notion of rule of law that's permeating across the entire society. Well, how do we operationalize all of those ideals if there are no lawyers? I'm not trying to persuade all of you to become lawyers by taking Purdue Global Law School degree program, but no, it truly is it's a noble cause. And all the jokes aside, you can go at Wikipedia and you can ask your AI agent, they would compile you with 3 million jokes about lawyers. That aside, we wouldn't be the kind of unique, exceptional society we have here without that. And that whole spirit of common law, in particular, spirit, we take for granted. But frankly, most of the places today and most of the points in history, common people do not enjoy the benefits of such a legal system. So, well, I, for one, like lawyers very much, especially if they're on my side. But, yes, please. I also want to turn to the students to ask questions, but please.
Yeah, but this is interesting. I was getting ready to write my first day of the judiciary, and I love history, so I thought I'm going to go into the library and research the first couple cases of the Indiana Supreme Court. And they were ridiculously bad. I mean, it was like a lot of land squatters, horse thieves. There was a card game called Loo, L-O-O, that was illegal. And then there was a case. And it was a case of Hyas LaSalle versus Polly Strong. And Polly grew up in Knox County. She was a slave, but Indiana's Constitution in 1816 said slavery was illegal. Polly learned how to read. And her mother, Jenny, knew how to read too. So Polly got some attorneys to represent her, to go to court, to say, listen, slavery's illegal in Indiana. Why am I a slave? So she got attorneys to represent her. She lost at the trial court. Case came up to the Indiana Supreme Court. And the Indiana Supreme Court said, the Constitution says what the Constitution says. Slavery's illegal. You are free. 2 years later, Mary Clark was an indentured servant. Well, that's another fancy word for slavery. That case lost at the trial court, came up to the Supreme Court. She was free. So the point is, you can have these rights that are in the Constitution, but if you don't have somebody to represent you, and if you don't have a court to enforce them, what are they worth? What is the importance? So those early constitutional rights cases really hit home. I worry about the people that, we have a lot of people that come to court unrepresented and are trying to navigate the system. So it's important for us that we make a system that's understandable. We have groups that are working on this. You go to indianalegalhelp.org. We have forms that are available to help you navigate. But until you're staying in a courtroom, knowing that your liberty's at stake, and every day in Indiana, thousands of people are standing in courtrooms with their liberty at stake, you want to make sure that you are advised of your rights, that you're protected, and that you have a judge that's going to follow the law and protect you.
Mm-hmm. Well said. We have some students here who would like to ask Your Honor some questions.
Good evening. Thank you both for having us this evening and providing for such a conversation. My name is John Barden. I'm a junior here studying political science and economics with a minor in history. My question for you this evening is, what advice would you give to current students such as myself who are looking to go into public service?
Yeah, I practiced for 16 years. Was an advocate in courtrooms, and then I became a judge, a trial court judge. I was a juvenile court judge for many years. I know a lot of you hear from that. So I've been a public servant for about 27 years, and I can't think of a better profession. And I've never met somebody that spent a career in public service or part of a career in public service that didn't feel that sense of something bigger than themselves. You're not just doing this for yourself, you're doing things for others. And I think the idea of using a law degree to be able to protect the rights of somebody, to advocate for them, to be a judge is extremely rewarding. I mean, it has generational impact. You know, the lives of the people that come before you seeking justice. Just think about it, you're working for justice. So I would really encourage you. I worry about our next generation of leaders with regard to public service and what you can get out of that. But there are, having worked at the State House now, having worked in the local courthouse, seeing the people that work for the public and that do it for years and do it because their heart's in that place, it's really compelling. You know, the dollars only, you know, you can't take it with you in the end, but what you can do is, you know, the relationships that you make and being able to be part of systemic change is really rewarding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Hi, my name is Gabby Falls. I'm a junior as well. I'm a triple major in law and society, professional writing, and creative writing, but I'm also pre-law.
I like all of those things.
Yes, yes. President Chang asked you what challenges you foresee in proving or disproving the authenticity of AI-generated videos or images used as evidence, which was the question that I had planned to ask you. So I'll ask you something else.
Oh, great.
You spoke about the need for rural attorneys in Indiana, and you also spoke of spikes in elder abuse within the last recent years. Well, I plan on practicing in rural Indiana, and I plan on specializing in elder law. So I was just curious what advice that you had to people like me when starting out in a field like that, in an area like that.
Come see me. I'm serious. I mean, comes to me. I have many people think about a career in law just to find opportunities. There's internships. We have a rural justice initiative where we place like first-year law students in the summer. They get paid. I think they get paid like $5,000 for the summer, and we link them in rural communities either with a judge or an attorney. I would do internships and really see, because I think I went to law school, and I think a lot of lawyers go to law school, you don't know really what law is going to call to you. I didn't know I wanted to be a juvenile court judge when I practiced law, and I was very drawn to that. I still am very drawn to that area. So I would learn everything you can. What I would do here is I would go sit in the juvenile courtroom or go sit in a courtroom for half a day. Have you ever done that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it fascinating, the life things that you see? I would talk to judges to get ideas from them. I would see if you could job shadow attorneys. President Chang's daughter came and job shadowed me down at the State House because she's thinking about being a lawyer. But there are going to be plentiful jobs for you. But I would get involved. You said you're a junior?
Yes, I'm an intern in Rockville, Indiana. If anybody knows where that is, probably not. Oh, some people. Oh my gosh, that surprises me. But yeah. So.
But I would also talk to Pat Harrington, the prosecutor, because I mean they work on elder abuse. They do prosecutions on elder abuse cases. So there's a lot of opportunities for advancement in that area. So I'm just excited with that background and your beautiful writing stuff from that for you getting involved. And I'd be happy to talk with you and then link you with different people and groups to get you going in those areas.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Oh, fantastic. Well, giving Chief Justice homework tonight.
It's good homework.
Wonderful. Another question, please.
Hi, my name is Rain Wilson. I'm a sophomore, double majoring in political science and natural resources and environmental science. And my question for you is, what are your passions outside of your profession, and how have you managed to maintain those over the course of your career?
I work a lot, I will say that. Sorry, Jim, my husband. But when I'm not working, I try to. I mean, I'm not happy Purdue's playing at 10 o'clock Friday night. By the way, can I talk to you about that? I know.
I'll still be there.
Do when I'm not working, I want to learn things in areas I don't know anything about. I want to learn how to cook a new dish. I want to read a book about something I don't know anything about. I want to listen to a podcast. I want to go hike a new trail. So I try to shut it off when I'm done, because there's always, there's never, it's not just black and white in the law. I mean, there's cases that it's like, which way can you go? And I remember talking to Sandra Day O'Connor, who I have a huge amount of respect for, and they go, you think the job is glamorous, but we spend a lot of time in our head reading, researching, and writing, and then running the branch of government. So I try to find things that are positive. I'm not going to spend time watching murder mysteries, right? Or Real Housewives. I want things that will make me feel stronger and enriched and nourishing and bring joy. And church, family. I've been married I have four kids, 5 grandkids. I've got a great husband. We do a lot of things outside, so I try to balance it out. But I'm not always giving myself an A in doing that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for the questions. Now, come back. I've got a couple more questions for you before we're out of time this hour. I've been to many, and soon will be to all of the 92 counties in our great state of Indiana. And whichever county I go to our extension office, but also often pass by. Sometimes they're located right close by the county courthouse. And I can see the sense of pride and respect that everybody shows, that, this is our courthouse. I look at the most august building there in the county on Main Street. That's the courthouse. And I wonder sometimes, for folks like you who shoulder such special responsibilities, but you do this every day for so many years and decades now, do you find certain moments, like when you step onto the bench that's usually elevated, right? And you look down, or when you call it to order, or when you recess, and you look at certain folks' faces down there, and suddenly it reminds you yet again, maybe your first day on that bench, the special sense of responsibility. Are there such moments Because at least I know for most common folks, walk into the courthouse, Your Honor, oh, she now walks in, let's all stand up, now I'm trembling, I don't, but what do you usually feel when you walk onto that bench?
Do you know, you feel the position and you feel the importance of the rule of law and the case that came before you. And you really want to make sure that everybody leaves that courtroom feeling heard. That, you know, I'm involved nationally, you know, with regard to public trust in the courts and where is it? Do some people feel there's a two-tiered system of justice? And we've got to combat all that. So the respect of standing up and wearing the robe is for the position, not the person, and you remember that it's the position, not the person. Sometimes you'll see the person thinks it's too much about the person, and we try to work on that. But, you know, I chair a lot of merit selection committees and looking at judges and looking at judicial candidates, and I really want to have judges that sort of, I call it, feel the hot breath of humanity on their neck, that they realize that this isn't a case that you're just trying to get through, that it's somebody's life, liberty, child, finance, whatever the issue that came that is so important to them, and treat them with respect. And there's a lot of studies that are done. People care as much how they get treated through the judicial process that they care about the results. So it's called procedural due process versus substantive due process, and making sure that they are heard. I just did a listening session with foster parents around the state, and I did not realize that not every judge asks foster parents what they think when they're in the court. So it opened my eyes to, okay, we've got to do some better training with regard to making sure that the judges understand what their role is, with regard to listening to different voices and not superimposing any type of their social economic views on what's going before them. But I think there's a beauty, and I had, for the state of the judiciary, I give it the legislature, I asked all our judges to go stand outside their courthouse, so all 92 counties had all judges, and I put them on the screen in the legislature so they remember the fact that what's in the center of every community, it's a courthouse. And what does that mean? I mean, it's relevant to the importance of law and order, because if you don't have that fair, impartial arbiter of those disputes, where are those disputes going to happen, and what is society going to look like? And you can see that in other countries.
Well, there must be cases where you had to struggle. I don't know, maybe between what emotionally you think should be done versus what the legal analysis telling you. There may be cases because the consequences to certain individuals or institutions is very dire. There may be cases where it is just controversial as a topic in society. So I want to ask you my last question in part A and B. I usually abuse my power. I don't have any, but abuse it to ask the last question. What was the most stressful moment of your professional career? And I'm going to tag onto that to this question. Do you still think that for many years to come, that American public will maintain its trust on our legal system?
Most stressful moment in my professional career, probably when I was talking to Governor Daniel. There's two places to sit in his office.
That was also my most stressful moment when I first saw him.
There's two places to sit in his office, and one was this couch that my feet didn't touch the ground, and I tried to get the chair, and he got the chair, and I was on the couch. When your feet don't touch the ground, I feel like your IQ goes down about 15, 20 points. So I'm just sitting there dangling like in the kid chair. I think there have been some really tough decisions. I mean, we have a lot of tough decisions that come our way, and you know, our role is not to govern; it's to apply the law. But sometimes the law isn't there; it's not clear, or there is no statute on this. So you've got to decide how you're going to grow the common law, and you have this case that maybe calls for this opinion, and there's not a statute or something clearly on point. And trying to get to the right decision. That's what's nice about having 5 justices to all work against each other. We had an oral argument a couple weeks ago, which is going to have a huge economic impact on the state, but we couldn't figure out what the legislature was saying. Did you mean net or gross income on this? And I had night court for legislators last year where I invited the legislators to all come to the Supreme Court, and it was like we had a case for them on statutory interpretation. So they got to see us agonizing over what these two words meant. In this particular case, that I had the President Pro Tem and the Speaker of the House serve as bailiffs. And they were like at a sporting event. I thought it should go this way. I thought it should go this way. And then I sent them all a copy of that. But it's kind of the interconnectedness between the branches. But it's tough sometimes. I will tell you, we still have capital punishment in Indiana. Signing an execution order is not something I'd want anybody. But we take an oath to follow the law as it's written. That doesn't make it easy. There's highly political issues that come to our court that I can't believe you didn't rule this way. Well, if I was making the law, I'd probably rule that way, but I'm applying the law. And if you have judges always making the law, the rules of the game change all the time, and that predictability and that institutional integrity will chip away. So as Chief Justice, I'm constantly looking at the lens of, and I got a chance to talk to Chief Justice John Roberts. I had dinner with him. We call ourselves the two justices from Indiana, Chief Justice because he actually went to school in Indiana, and we talk about institutional integrity and how important it is. So that's my goal as Chief Justice, is to keep the trust in the system, make sure that we're being fair, impartial arbiters of the law and the issues that come before us. And I give a lot of respect to our founders that set up this system of government. And we can knock it, and we can be upset at something that happens at the time, but I'm not finding a better system anywhere out there that we have with regard to three co-equal branches of government that serve as checks and balances on each other.
What do you think about the public trust in our court system?
Well, we're taking a lot of knocks these days, but I believe the foundation is secure. And if you're unhappy with the judge's decision, you have a right to appeal. And if you don't like that one, you can appeal again. And you have a right to jury from your peers. And I've served on jury trial. I've served as a judge on jury trials. I've talked to jurors afterwards. I'm so impressed with Hoosiers that give up their time to serve. And you have a right to select who's on the jury too. You have challenges, and you have two types of challenges that you can have. And I think juries get it right just about all of the time, and they care, and they're giving up their time. So I think the system works. I think when you study history, you'll see other times in history that different branches of government got knocked around some. But in the end, I think the foundation is really secure. But we have to work for that.
We have to keep working for that. And I feel like, especially after this hour listening to you, Chief Justice, the state court system is like the air we breathe. We may not fully appreciate every moment because it's so permeating around us. But without it, we're not going to keep our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.